Truth or Dare was the horror movie that was released earlier this year in 2018. And the plot to this movie basically revolves around these group of teenagers who one night decide to play a game of Truth or Dare. And ever since, after those games of Truth or Dare, these weird elements start to occur surrounding these group of teenagers. Apparently the game itself is after each individual one by one, and they have to do a truth or a dare in order to live, and if they don't, they die. Wow, that sounds like an interesting plot. Oh boy. According to IMDb, this movie only got a 5.1 out of 10. And I had the opportunity to actually watch this movie last night. So anyway, let me just get to the conclusion. I was not even excited to watch this movie. Not only because of the feedback that occurred after this movie was released, but the concept of this movie alone. And I am not even proud to say that this movie is terrible. I was not surprised. This movie didn't even look that good from the start, honestly. I mean, the concept alone of this movie is just painful. It's absolutely atrocious. The idea of this in particular game, just surrounding all of these entire individual teenagers and knocking them out and just killing them off one by one if they don't do a specific truth or a specific dare. It's just, what? There are so many things in this movie that hardly make sense. So many things. I'd say the only thing that actually does work in this movie, I could say that the actors try sometimes. I guess sometimes in this movie, acting is acceptable. The characters are not interesting at all. The story is ridiculous, honestly. There are a lot of things in this movie that don't make sense or are highly ridiculous. It hurts the movie so bad. Like, this movie is just... This is honestly, I wouldn't really say this is one of the worst horror movies of all time, because there are a lot of terrible horror movies out there that can be worse than this, but this movie, I'm not seeing an excuse. This movie is still pretty terrible. Like, for example, every time one of the characters in this movie would experiencing something weird going on, a person would just pop up in front of them and ask them a truth or dare question. But their expressions on their face are always like, truth or dare, truth or... Like, what? It's just stupid. Like, what is it supposed to build into the story? It really isn't supposed to build anything. And I think that this movie has no potential whatsoever. The concept was good enough, at least. But this movie goes nowhere with its story or its characters or anything, even its direction. It all makes this a gigantic train wreck. And like I said, this movie's terrible. It really is. But the concept of it could have been a lot better if this was in the hands of a person who knows the detail of making a horror film. And if the story was much, much stronger, I think we would have had a better experience. But considering that these characters are not even close to being interesting, the storyline is very ridiculous and the direction is highly flat. Nothing works in this film, sadly. And for instance, let me just explain a scene that'll just give you a hint on how ridiculous this movie is. And it's literally in the beginning of the movie. This woman is being told a dare, I believe, to burn a woman in a gas station somewhere. Burn her alive. And she's like, I'm sorry, I have to. Like, what? What? That does not tie into the story. And then she literally lights her up on fire, and she goes running out of the gas station, flaming. And then she falls on the ground and dies. And then that's when the movie starts. What was with that? Who said that scene was a good idea first off? That ties nothing into the story, and it made no sense. Lucy Hale plays as the main character named Olivia in this movie. You know, she tries her best. I'm not going to trash down on the acting because you could tell that the actors are actually trying an attempt to like be good actors in this film. Even though the characters are so stupid and we don't even care about any of the characters because of the storyline and the ridiculous things that happen in this film, the actors do somewhat make an attempt on trying their best in this film, but that does not make this film a plus. This film is still pretty bad. And I also noticed something in this movie too. Every time a body count occurs, no one cares. It's just every time a character dies in this movie by a truth or dare, no one really does anything. No one just cares or anything. No one calls the police. No one calls an ambulance. Just no one cares. And that's one of the reasons why we didn't care about these. Well, why I didn't care about these characters, at least. And the ending of this movie is horrific. And by horrific, I mean terrible horrific. Bad horrific. It is so bad that I don't even want to spoil the ending of this movie. Don't even watch this movie to find out what the ending of this movie is. I'd say find maybe a movie clip on YouTube or something. Don't waste an hour and 40 minutes throughout this entire film, because I couldn't really stand this watch. I kind of wanted to switch movies when I was watching Truth or Dare. I wanted to watch something else, but every second of this movie just made me watch it. It's just that this film, the problem with Truth or Dare is that it has no potential as a horror film, no direction, no great or lovable characters, not even good characters either. And their storyline is ridiculous, and the elements are ridiculous. And the acting is fine at times. Like I said, the actors do try. And let's be honest, if you've seen Truth or Dare, then you know where I'm heading. The death scenes in this film aren't even shocking. They're not even close to being shocking, which brings me to one more thing. This film really lags on suspense. It really does. This film doesn't know how to shock its audience because of the lack of potential this film has. It has no potential whatsoever, which means no potential leads to no suspense. There's no suspense. I mean, there's drama back and forth, but we don't get invested into what's going on that's surrounding these characters because nothing really makes sense in this film. And it's just thrown at you really quickly without giving you any accurate information. And another thing that really bothers me about Truth or Dare is there are so many subplots in this movie that really don't matter, and it's towards the characters. I'm not really going to spoil the subplots of this movie because they're honestly everywhere, and it doesn't fit with the story, honestly, which makes these characters very useless. Do we really need some certain subplots about some characters and their backstories, or maybe their parents or something like that? Do we really need that in a movie like this? No, we don't. We really don't. You guys, Truth or Dare is honestly a mess. It is a gigantic... It is a gigantic pile of crap, honestly. It is terrible. If you haven't seen it, and if you're planning on seeing it, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this movie is terrible, in my view at least. If you guys want to go watch this movie, go ahead. But I'm just trying to warn you that this was probably an hour and 40 minutes of a waste of my life. This wasted an hour and 40 minutes of my life, technically. And everything that I couldn't stand anything in this movie. It just, the concept alone is ridiculous. Just watch the trailers multiple times of Truth or Dare and just let it sink into your head that you could probably, without even watching the movie, you could probably tell that this movie is ridiculous from the get-go. And most viewers probably saw that coming, even before Truth or Dare came out. And honestly, like I said, this movie could have been a much better movie if it was in the hands of a really good filmmaker who knows the potential of horror films. And if it had a much stronger story. And which leads me to the production company. Universal. How the heck did Universal get the rights to distribute this movie? This honestly does not feel like a film that Universal would distribute. This almost feels like a Dimensions film. Like maybe films like teenage horror films. This doesn't feel like a film that Universal would distribute. It feels like a Dimensions film. Like a teenage horror movie. And I really don't know why Universal decided to own the rights to make this film, but they made the wrong decision. guys, I don't have to say anything more about this movie. This movie is terrible. Don't see it. Just don't. I technically hated every minute of this movie. I wanted to like this movie. The concept was interesting. But it doesn't mean anything about this movie. This movie could have been something different, honestly. But since it's in the hands of people who technically don't even know how to make a horror movie, this fails. Everything in this movie fails. I'm going to give Truth or Dare an F. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching this movie review. Look forward to more movie reviews that'll be coming out in a couple of days. I'm back to horror movie month, so that's really good. You're gonna see more horror movie reviews that I'll be doing. I decided to review Truth or Dare because why not? It's a horror movie. I mean, but anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this review. You guys are the best. I love every single one of you. Thank you guys so much for always watching. And as always, I am MarioFan520, and I will see you next time. Peace out.